Aristotle once said, all paid employment absorbs and degrades the mind. Hello, my name is John Rose, and that's one of my favorite quotes, not just by Aristotle, but by everyone, because it really says volumes to me. Tells me that something's really wrong with our species, that we shouldn't be playing this game that we are playing right now, this money game, where no one really wins, and it's all about accumulating wealth. In fact, if money did not exist, if we didn't have this exchange mentality, we couldn't accumulate the amount of wealth that people have been able to do so right now. And that's kind of what got us in trouble, is once we created money, we created the ability for people to create an insane amount of wealth that there's no way they could ever spend in their lifetime or all of their children's lifetime forever. It's insane the way this imbalance has become. If we could look at a global balance sheet and look at everyone's net worth all around the globe and put it all on one global balance sheet, it would really shock the vast majority of us to see how lopsided the haves and the have-nots are. And what's really interesting about this, in a way, is that accumulated wealth is sort of an illusion. On an abundant planet with an ever-increasing labor force, we should be accumulating so much wealth and passing it down to the next generation so that each generation doesn't have to do a whole lot just to keep things going. That's what we should be experiencing right now on this planet. But no, instead, most people wake up and do things they don't want to do. All paid employment absorbs and degrades the mind. When we start working for other people and they start making profits and accumulating this wealth, it creates an imbalance on our planet, and it's all based with having the wrong mentality to begin with. And this is why you always have to go back when you ever think about anything this profound and look at things from a raw food, cooked food perspective. Because when we do that, we realize that with a raw food perspective, we have the right mentality. We have a gift mentality. We don't have an exchange mentality. We don't have a barter system. We don't have any type of monetary system where it's possible that this abnormal thing should ever happen. Accumulated wealth should not happen at the level it is. All of the accumulated wealth on this planet should be passed down to everyone so that this planet just continues to become the paradise that it was, and it just gets better and better and better and better. That's what this life is supposed to be like, so that's why life is an illusion. Money is an illusion. Profit and loss in itself is really an illusion, if you really stop and think about it. Because everything anybody sells, they could have sold it at cost, or they could have gave it away. So I could have bought a widget and made $1 million off of it, or I could have bought 1 million widgets for $1 a piece. I could have gave it all away. I could have lost $1 million. It's all an illusion. The profit and the loss is really just an illusion. It's something that we make up using this system that represents really our labor, doesn't it? Sort of. That's kind of how the vast majority of us look at it. And I'm convinced that's how the people who rule the world look at it. Because they have so much accumulated wealth. I'm sure it's to them just like a game. No different than a game of Monopoly, where they look at all their accumulated wealth, and to them it represents all the accumulated labor, all the slaves they had that worked for them. That's what we are. We are slaves to these people. And all of their accumulated wealth represents how many slaves they had for however millennium they've been doing this. We got to bail out of this game. This is not a game anyone wins. Even those who have all the accumulated wealth, they're still in hell. We're still not experiencing the most we should from this existence. We are only coming close to living up to our potential, physically and mentally and emotionally and communally, meaning that we're all one. Not only just the community we live in here, but everything's a community. Once we understand this concept that we're all one, we have a local community, a global community, a galactical community, a universal community. We're all little bitty specks of that little bitty green pea, remember? That's how all the energy started this all off. But then something happened. Long ago, our brains got bigger. We were able to do things we hadn't done before. And we lacked the wisdom not to make a bad application. That's what we did. We lost one of our senses. That's why we have the wrong mentality. That's why we have an exchange mentality. That's why we have accumulated wealth. That's why we have people working and degrading their minds with paid employment. We're not supposed to be spending our days this way. Every one of us should be able to wake up every day and do exactly what they want to do to be sure they are the best that they can be. And when that happens, then everyone benefits from it. No matter what they do, as long as they're not harming themselves. And you know they're not going to harm anyone else, because when we're living the right way, we know that there's no such thing as harming anyone else. We're all one. So life is such an illusion. How can the average person even understand what I'm saying? You really can't, and I unfortunately understand that. So what do we do? Well, I know there's only one thing we can do. I can't explain a revelation. You have to experience it. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So go down below, make the decision, do the first of my 3-step process if you haven't done so yet. If you do this periodically, then you pick the time of year you like to do it and do it at that time. And keep doing it every year. And don't be shy. Wait till people approach you and go, wow, you look great. You got to tell me your secret. Well, let me tell you. There's something you can do that's very simple. And when we all do it, this planet will transform. The main thing is we'll gain back our 6th sense. Then we'll have the right mentality. We won't have an exchange mentality. We won't want to barter with people. We won't want to exchange with people expecting something back. We're going to be all giving, receiving. That's how it's supposed to be. The more you give, the more you receive when everyone has an adequate biophoton level and understands that concept. It's hard to wrap our brain around, but once you bump up your biophotons, you start realizing how important everything is around you because it's part of who you are. And you don't want to trash it. You want to make it better. You want to help people who are hurting. Because when they hurt, you can feel it more. Sort of a drawback to bumping up our biophotons and why some people can't handle it. It can be almost too intense. So, what do we do about the situation now? What about the haves and the have-nots? They've got all this money. What about the rest of us? We play the money game. How do we back out of it? Well, we have to do some downstream work. I've explained this before. Money is the absolute tool of control. It's being used to own and control all the other major sources of human endeavor that can brainwash us and make us think a certain way. So the first thing we have to do downstream is take back control over the issuance of our own money. Stop loaning out at interest. Stop using usury. Go to a debt-free currency instead of a debt-based currency. And then that's what we do downstream. But the main thing, we got to go upstream. Get reconnected. Gain back our 6th sense. Change our mentality. And once enough of us do this, we will realize that we don't need money. It won't exist in the way that it does now. We may still have some form of it. I don't know exactly how that's going to go. As I mentioned before, it's difficult to project in the future how things are going to change once we reach the tipping point. But I know one thing for sure. If we don't reach the tipping point, things are never going to change. And when they do, all of us will be in for a treat.